Good morning, friends. Welcome to Fairfield Friends Meeting. Thank you, Joanne, for that song. I feel like I can breathe for the first time all day. If you don't mind to silence your cell phones or turn them off or put them into airplane mode, any variation of that would be helpful for our folks attending on Zoom today. It's going to be a good service today. We've got Noah Litu Kellum here with us. Phil's going to do a proper introduction, but Noah and I started at ESR at the same time, August 1st of 2021. So we will start with song number 7, Come Thou Almighty King, Stand As You Are Able. I woke up at 2 a.m. this morning to the sound of a fire truck going down 5th Street in Richmond, and I was unable to go back to sleep, so I decided to look at the news, which is not recommended these days. But there is a bright spot in that several hours ago, a ceasefire was announced between the Israeli government and Hamas in Palestine. So there are things to be joyful about, even if they are muted by future events. For the centering thought today, I have a poem called Interbeing, written by the Zen Buddhist Thich Nhat Hanh. And I think in the age of polarization and fear that we're in, one antidote to that is meditating on the fact that we exist to each other, and that the lines by which we separate ourselves by are not real. So here's Interbeing by Thich Nhat Hanh. The sun has entered me. The sun has entered me together with the cloud and the river. I myself have entered the river, and I have entered the sun with the cloud and the river. There has not been a moment when we do not exist within each other. But before the sun entered me, the sun was in me, also the cloud and the river. Before I entered the river, I was already in it. There has not been a moment where we have not interbeen. Therefore, you know that as long as you continue to breathe, I continue to be in you. Friends, now it's time for announcements, beginning with folks on Zoom. Do we have any announcements from Zoom? Seeing none, do we have any announcements from the meeting house?
Beth Simons here. I did not send out a timely notice about the newsletter for February, so if you have any contributions, if you could get them to me by Wednesday, that would be great. And if you have some and you know they're going to be late, just let me know. Also, we're having writing group today at 1 o'clock.
This is Joanne Gulley, and I have two announcements. Outreach Committee will be meeting via Zoom on January 27th. Also, the book club will start back up for this year, and we're going to start with a pitch-in, which always makes us happy. And really, this is just a regathering. So that is on February 2nd at the RISA meeting. We're going to have a pitch-in and conversation, a little show and tell. It's just going to be fun. So mark your calendars, ladies.
This is Lynn DeRocher, and I'm acting as a recording clerk for a monthly meeting in Anita's absence today. So I'd just like to remind everyone that you're welcome to stay for a meeting for business. And we will be starting around 12, maybe give you time to have a little snack or relax a little bit, but please join us here in the meeting room at 12 or thereabouts.
My name is Bobby Stobick, and one of the reasons I come to this church is because of all the social issues that this church stands up for, and so, it's probably on the web. I unfortunately have ties to the results of domestic abuse, and there's a politician named Fadi Kadora that's proposing a bill to strengthen punishments for people that commit crimes against mostly women. And I have copies of it, and I would ask if you agree with it. The only way it will pass is if people reach out and scream that this violence has to stop. And if you agree, I do have copies, and if you agree, please reach out to your local politicians and ask that they pass this bill. Thank you.
Sandra Hayes Hartman here, and I see Patty Bowling isn't here, but she sang year before last with the gospel choir, with the Philharmonic Orchestra, and many people came last year for the concert. It's a wonderful concert, and we're going to do it again this year. I think it's on the 15th. I tried to ask my phone, but the man said he found it on the web, and I had to turn him off. But it's on the 15th. It's at an unusual time, 2 o'clock. It's a Saturday, and it's at 2 o'clock. But it should be wonderful. So those of you who want to experience gospel music in its rarest form, come on the 15th. I'll have brochures next week. Do come.
Hi, this is Sue Walton. And this morning I got a note from our former meeting in Evanston. Evanston feels that is a suburb of Chicago, and they feel that they are being targeted with their refugees. And one of the comments that their clerk of Peace and Social Concerns commented that churches are not legally forms of refuge. It is only by social custom. But we need to hold other Quaker meetings in the light so that they can take care and be careful of what is going to may or may not happen. So hold them in the light, please. Thank you.
I have an announcement. As a part of my internship with the yearly meeting, we're going to have an online hour of waiting worship tomorrow, beginning at 1:30 p.m. So if anybody's interested in that, I'll have the Zoom link sent out. If you want to be with other folks tomorrow afternoon, this might be a nice place for that.
Well, I have a joy. My joy is having Noah Kellum here with us today. Noah is a recent graduate of the Earlham School of Religion and is currently ministering as a chaplain at the Ohio Health Grant Medical Center in Columbus, Ohio. Noah was born and raised in Kenya. Is it a third-generation member of the Religious Society of Friends? In 1923, a Quaker named Everett Kellum moved to Kenya to live, where he befriended Noah Kellum's grandfather, who, in respect for their deep friendship, took Everett Kellum's surname, last name. Everett Kellum's great-great-great-grandfather, Noah Kellum, another Noah Kellum, moved from North Carolina to Indiana in 1825 and helped found this meeting in 1826. He is buried in our old graveyard just north of the 1892 meeting house. Joining him in our cemeteries are dozens of Kellum family members who've been a part of our Fairfield family for 199 years now. So this morning, we do not say to Noah Kellum, welcome to Fairfield. This morning, we say, welcome home.
Friends, let's pray. Loving and faithful God, we come before you today as a community drawn together by your Spirit, seeking your presence and lifting our hearts in prayer. Thank you for the gift of this church, a place where we gather to worship, to serve, and to be renewed by your love. We lift to you those among us who are sick or in pain. Lord, bring your healing touch to their bodies, minds, and spirits. Grant them comfort in their struggles and strength in their recovery, and bless the hands and hearts of those who care for them. We remember those traveling, whether for work, race, or family. Watch over them, protect them from harm, and guide their journeys peacefully. May they feel your presence wherever they go and return safely to us. We hold close to our hearts the elderly in our community. Lord, Bless them with your tender care, surround them with love and companionship, and grant them the assurance of your unending faithfulness. May we honor their wisdom and support them in their needs. For those who carry various burdens, loneliness, grief, financial strains, or unseen struggles, we ask for your comfort and provision. Be their refuge and strength, and help us as a church to be your hands and feet, offering support and hope to those in need. Guide us, Lord, as a congregation to walk in the path of your love. Fill us with compassion for one another and for the world around us. Strengthen our faith, unite us in purpose, and empower us to live as a reflection of your grace. In all things, we trust in your goodness and mercy, and we pray in the name of Jesus Christ, our teacher and friend. Amen. Once again, good morning, friends. I count it an honor to stand before you today. And thank you for welcoming me home. I didn't know that the Kellums were buried here. So some of our family members, that's what we say. I and Kelly Kellum, we call ourselves cousins. And yes, we are cousins. I always ask for grace because this language I'm speaking is not my first language. It's not my second language. It's not my third language. It's not my 10th language. It's not my 15th language. This language, I bought it in school, and it's my 19th language. I haven't used it much. I began using it like 3 years ago. This is my 4th year that I'm using it. Today, I stand before you to bring a message to us. And yes, I will repeat, it's an honor for me today to bring this message to us. Our reading comes from the book of Amos, chapter 5, verse 18 to 24. And I will read. Woe to you who desire the day of the Lord. Why do you want the day of the Lord? It's darkness, not light. As if someone fled from a lion and was met by a bear, or we went into the house and raised a hand against the warlord, was bitten by a snake. Is not the day of the Lord darkness, not light, and gloom with no brightness in it? I despise your festivals, and I take no delight in your solemn assemblies. Even though you offer me your burnt offerings and grain offerings, I will not accept them, and the offerings of well-being of your fatted animals I will not look upon. Take away from me the noise of your songs. I will not listen to the melody of your harps. But let justice roll down like water, and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. I will repeat verse 24. But let justice roll down like water, and righteousness like an ever-flowing stream. world is grappling with 4 difficult themes: grief and remembrance, injustice and action, disillusionment and hope, change and growth. All of these hard things are common human experiences. And as the darkness sets in for the times ahead, we are holding these experiences in our hands and asking, what do we do with these hard things? This morning, we are holding the difficult experience of injustice. There are a lot of injustices that are happening everywhere, in every community in the world. The text from Amos that I just read sets up nicely to talk about how we usually respond to difficulty. Like children, when I was growing up, we would say, "My dad can beat up your dad." In response to a perceived slight, the children of Israel saw themselves as victims of injustice. They wanted the day of the Lord to come so that everything could be set right. They wanted their enemies to suffer. They wanted God to sweep away evil. They were calling for it, expecting it with eager anticipation. And Amos the prophet interrupts to say, "What in the world are you thinking? Do you really think evil is only located in your enemies? Why do you want the day of the Lord to come? It is darkness and not light. You hate your enemies, but do you not see the injustice that comes from your own hands? God is not interested in your festivals, in your rituals, in your rites. Away with the noise of your worship." Amos says, "Instead, let justice roll down like mighty waters." It's a good thing that was just a them problem, right? We certainly don't respond the same way today, right? Oh no, wait. I guess we are all suffering from a human problem. We don't want to look at ourselves. We don't want to look at our actions. We want God to be on our side. We need it to be true. We need certainly that I am on the right team, they are on the wrong team, and we are going to win. We will go to many lengths to convince ourselves it is true. In this age of political strife all around the globe, we are not likely finished with the fallout, especially here, for example, the election season and the regime change. The rhetoric of us versus them has been intense. And the arguments presented did not serve to change anyone's mind, rather to intensify the hate and the fear of one side towards the other. Prophet Amos tells people that their religious practices will not convince God to be on their side. Only participating in creating a more just society will please God. Calling for God to bring vengeance for those who are participating in injustice will only call down judgment on their own heads if they are not careful. not just here, but many times in the prophets, we hear that God is more interested in justice than sacrifice, more interested in society and culture in which the poor are cared for, where the marginalized are brought to the center, than one where all the rules of religious festivals are followed. Jesus picks this up in the Gospels as he told religious leaders they were more concerned with tithing their garden herbs than practicing injustice and mercy. Paul tells everyone in Romans 2 that when we judge others, we heap condemnation on our heads because we do the same things. James picks up this theme in our New Testament scripture this morning. Set aside anger, listen instead. Human anger cannot bring about God's justice. Remember, the word in the Greek for righteousness is the same as justice. And what does James instruct us to do? He tells us to take action. Stop talking about it and act. Stop reading about it and act. Stop complaining about it and act. Care for the widows, care for the orphans, care for the marginalized, speak on their behalf, and step away from the ways of the world. Too often in our modern era of internal advocacy on social media, we think we have done our part if we like, share and post the causes we care about. We think we have done our part if we go to vote once every 4 years here in America, once in 5 years in Kenya, where I come from. We put the responsibility of bringing about a just society on the shoulders of political and government leaders. We stop paying attention to the policies and laws that are being passed because the person we voted for won. We trust them and we do not actually want to know if they will follow through, or the person we voted for lost and we give up. We decide nothing we do will matter anyway. The reality is that justice is not lived out on the grand scale of national politics, whether in the United States or in Kenya or in Afghanistan, anywhere in the world. Can we legislate changes? Yes. But unless there is an agreement among everyday citizens, all we do is drive injustice underground. Think with me for a minute about race relations in this country. We outlawed slavery on the national level. I agree with that decision. But what followed were 100 years of oppression in smaller laws and regulations passed at the state and local levels that imprisoned and legally re-enslaved many people of color for simply not having a job. Laws that kept black men and women from voting. Eventually, after constitutional amendment, laws that kept citizens of color from equal access to education and public accommodations. We saw activism in the middle of last century that led to desegregation of schools and other public services. The Voting Rights Act that enfranchised voters of color for the first time in a meaningful way. I agree with these changes, but they did not end racism. Racism became subdued. expressed behind closed doors. People stopped saying the quiet part out aloud, but they kept their biases against black people. Institutions and policies continue disproportionately affect the daily lives of people of color, and those not directly affected could pretend everything was okay and racism was a thing of the past. Why am I criticizing the practice of legislating change on a national level? I support lobbying for change on any level and through any legitimate means of making a more just society. I want the government to make good laws that lead to good lives for every person in the country. I believe good policy matters, but I believe there is something that matters more. You and I, as Quakers today, choosing justice and mercy every day. What do we remember about the days of slavery? Quakers on the Underground Railroad seeking the good of their neighbor, and slave patrols hunting those seeking freedom. What do we remember about the civil rights movement? People on the ground, either marching for peace or protesting angrily at school integration. Why do you think makes more of a real difference in the neighborhood? Community members who connect and care for each other, or laws that say they have to be civil? We don't have to wait for the government policy to treat our neighbor with kindness. We don't have to wait for the Supreme Court to deem goodness constitutional. We can get busy feeding the hungry, or clothing the naked, or visiting those who are sick or imprisoned. We can practice religion that God, our Creator, accepts right now. We can care for the widows and orphans and the marginalized people. We can let justice roll down like mighty waters and righteousness. We can do that regardless of who won the election. We can do that whether the ballot measure we wanted passed or not. We can choose every day to walk in step with the Spirit, love our neighbor, and lift up those in need. We can choose to love our enemies. It is what we are called to as followers of Jesus. Love for enemy does not mean agreeing with them. It does mean seeking their good, working to create a world where they can live with respect and dignity. If we are tearing down the other side, we have already lost. Human anger does not bring about the justice of God. Friends, that does not mean that you can't be angry about injustice. It doesn't mean that you can't tell the truth about your experiences of being mistreated. It doesn't mean you have to bypass the negative feelings that accompany the realization that something is wrong in the government or society or your family or your neighborhood. Be upset, but take a pause. Take a moment to remember the person in front of you. Even the one working in justice is a beloved child of God. You can work for wholeness, healing, and peace, even as you tell the hard truth and seek for systematic change. We are all responsible for creating a community and a culture of justice. For example, we are not off the hook because of the election results in this country. We are responsible to act. And when we act in alignment with our values as Quakers, or as values with Jesus' principles, and working with the Spirit among us, we create change from the ground up. Therefore, friends, as we tune our hearts to listen during Quaker worship, can we ask the Spirit to show us the truth of our hearts? Can we trust Christ to teach us how to live daily in ways that are to the justice and peace of our communities? Can we allow our Creator to remind us that we are beloved image bearers, and in that reminder accept that of God in the person before us, even those who will decide we are their enemy? Let us now try what love would do.
Thank you for that message. My name is Libby, and I grew up at Fairfield. One of the headlines in the newspaper this past week was that our new governor, one of his first acts was to say, no more DEI initiatives, no more diversity, equity, inclusion issues. I'm on the Community Foundation board and on the DEI committee, so that really angered me. And it made me think about the Quaker principles and Quaker roots that I have here at Fairfield. And for some funny reason, one of the things that's come back over and over again to me is going to Quaker Haven Camp for the first time when I was 9 years old, which would have been 1971, and learning Bob Dylan's song, Blowing in the Wind, Blowing in the Wind. And I'm just so grateful for the lessons that I was taught through those Quakers. And now looking back on it, I think through those Quaker hippies that taught me those songs with their guitars while we sat around on the floor together. But the principles are so true, and there's a reason why Bob Dylan won the Nobel Prize for Literature with his words. And one of those phrases in Blowing in the Wind, a couple of them, I would recommend all of you to listen to Blowing in the Wind on repeat. How many years must a mountain exist before it is washed to the sea? And to me, that I believe he's talking about racism and our prejudices and how long can these institutional wrongnesses exist before they finally are washed to the sea. He also says, how many ears must one man have before he can hear people cry? Oh, there's so many good words in that song. But it takes me back to being that 9-year-old Quaker girl sitting at Quaker Haven Camp. And I'm just so grateful for the principles I've learned in this meeting and with the wider Quaker community.
Thank you for bringing up Blowing in the Wind. It's one of my favorites growing up. One thing about Blowing in the Wind, though, it asks a lot of very deep questions, but it doesn't give any answers. What's the answer? It's blown in the wind. it's out there somewhere, but it's elusive. So I think it's a challenge for us to work towards finding those actions and answering those questions.
Nita Kirchhoff. I just wanted to remind everyone, and I know some of you may not be on the email list, that tomorrow from 10 a.m. to noon, there will be a gathering, an inspirational gathering at Broadway United Methodist Church. There'll be speakers and music, and Phil is speaking. Sheila Seuss Kennedy will be there. And since it is Martin Luther King Jr. Day, there will be just a inspiration of his teachings, and I really appreciate your message. This fits well, of equality and justice. We must keep that in mind in this day and age. Thank you.
For several years, I was invited to be a guest speaker at the African American Church in Newcastle. And the deacons told me that as I was speaking, if they started saying, "Preach, brother, preach," you keep preaching. And if the women in the back start doing like this, helping Jesus, you sit down and shut up. Preach, brother, preach.
Hi, Erica and Sarah. When you mentioned TikTok was not just a community for kids. It was a community for everyone. I watched Denzel Washington preach after he got baptized. I've seen, there was a man on there, his name was Papa Jack, and he was 104 years old, and he would sit and preach from his wheelchair. And so we were told on TikTok to go to another website, Lemonade. You know what I'm talking about? Oh, really? Okay. Okay. Well, I switched over, jumped through all these hoops to get to Lemonade, and it's been banned. So it wasn't just a community, because winter's very hard for me, because I can't walk my dogs as much as I want to. You're stuck inside, it's cold, you know, it's just harder. You can't work out in the yard, cut the grass, so you're kind of stuck. And so for me, it was not just spiritual, it was, you know, something educational, it was about kindness, it was about equal rights, it was, you know, very informative. It taught me a lot. And I feel very sad that the website is down now, because I learned so much about history, about Vietnam War. I learned a lot about spirituality, and it was you know, like every community, you got your good guys, you got your bad guys, you just flip on past and go straight to the good guys. But, you know, I'm really worried about our country. Elon Musk wants to send up 25 more, you know what I'm saying, rockets up into space. 25 a year. What's that going to do to our oceans? Because, you know, the rocket that blew up, it has polluted the coral reef. And people are out there picking up pieces of that trash that he just left. So I'm concerned about Elon Musk, because I call him the First Lady, and because he's just not a good guy. But, you know, I pray for our country. I pray for our rights as human beings, as women. I have no more rights. They're gone. I have no autonomy about my body, and according to Governor Braun, if you're a woman and you get raped, you have to sign an affidavit that you were raped. Would they do that to a man? Would a man put up with that? I'm not going to put up with that. Of course, I'm, you know, old. But, you know, I think, you know, tomorrow I'm just going to not watch the inauguration. I veto. And I have that power. So, you know, I understand what your kids are going through. It's a hard time.
My name is Divya. I'm a millennial. And I just want to say, I can't underscore how the value of a space where one can speak freely. So I think that what was said about a lot of anger, I just see like in my generation and what we see in the news or what we see young people try to do, and the response to that through violence and suppression and censorship is just scary. And so a space like this is just invaluable.
I'm Sydney Anderson, and we started visiting at Fairfield because of how much they do in their part of Indy and Hendricks County, and I don't even know everywhere else. One of the things you kept saying was, act. We can't just feel annoyed or frightened or like we're going to hibernate for 4 years and this is going to go away. We each have to act, it seems to me, more than we have been, consciously trying to counteract the negativity that a lot of our friends and our neighbors and our country is enduring right now. But that was the word I kept hearing, is justice and righteousness don't just happen in a vacuum. People have to do something. Thank you.
This may seem like, pardon me, Mary Dooley, a very small thing. But I'm thinking about there's such a huge range of kinds of actions that we can take, and they can come from our heart minds. Nobody's taken away our heart minds. We still have them, and we can still exercise them. I became aware, and lots of you may be already aware of this, but one of the tiny things we can do tomorrow is turn on your TV to anything except the inauguration. This will, because it'll make the ratings for Trump go down. Because what's monitored are what stations are on and how many viewers there are. And so you don't have to watch or listen to any of it. And boycotting the inauguration is one thing, but do an alternative for whatever it's worth.
I'm right there with Sydney. I noticed the word that you used was act. And driving over this morning, I was listening to NPR, and the longer I listened, the more discouraged I got listening to things about the inauguration and the change of leadership and things like that. And then we come to chat room this morning. We have this woman from Afghanistan who had to leave Afghanistan with 19 members of her family, $300, her phone, her laptop, and the clothes on her back. And she lands at Camp Atterbury, at a refugee camp. At that point, I would have just curled into a fetal position and not done anything, but she didn't. She organized the other people that were there because she spoke the languages, and she helped them, and she ended up working in the governor's or in the mayor's office, and she now works for Patchwork, Indiana, I think it is called. Right. And Patchwork Indy, working on settling refugees from Afghanistan. Now that is a woman that acts. You know, she acts. So as tempting as it is for us to curl up in a fetal position for the next 4 years, thank you for that reminder that we need to act. And it doesn't have to be big. We don't have to organize the refugees. We can do small things that make a big difference.
I'm anxious because I don't usually talk. My name is B. Bryant, but for anyone who's looking for an alternative to TikTok, there's an app called Red Note or Little Red Book. It's a Chinese app, but it's mostly in Mandarin, but the website is adding more English features because of all the people going to it after TikTok. It's similar to TikTok. I haven't downloaded it, but I've heard a lot about it from Tumblr, which is a website that I'm on, and everyone on there seems sweet if you're looking for an alternative.
I don't usually, this is Ann Tarvin, I don't usually do a commercial in this point in the worship service, but this is kind of a little commercial. Last week in chat room, we started an article called 10 Ways to Be Prepared and Grounded Now That Trump Has Won. And it is by Quaker. It's nonviolent. We only got up to point 4. So we'll be continuing next week at chat room. So if anybody can get there at 9:30, I know that's terribly early. 8, yes, why, join us.
And Gautier, I think most of you guys know I work with immigrants almost every day. It's my honor. And as you guys were talking about action, I was just thinking of so many things that people can do every day. Go where poor people are. Go to a laundromat and bring a bunch of quarters and help people with their laundry. go to some of the apartment complexes and ask the managers there if there are people that are struggling with their rent. The assistance fund, the energy assistance fund for electricity or gas, almost every one of my clients brings in bills and shows me that they have outstanding balances. Of course, any school in IPS or probably in your county as well, winter coats, clothing. I'm sure Joanne and the other teachers have other ideas about that. I just feel like there's so many ways in which we can do something, and I'm struggling this morning. I'm really worried about this week, and I guess fear of the unknown can sometimes be worse than if we actually knew what might happen or what to be worried about. But so I've been going over those things in my mind as well. What can we do?
Paula Cardoza-Jones, I promise this is the last time I'm going to pop up. But I've said this before. I've been disappointed in a lot of things throughout my, since I started voting. I was disappointed in 1972 when McGovern lost. I've been disappointed, and I've seen the cycles. And we can be disappointed, but we can't be discouraged. We can't lose our courage. And I think a lot of us that have been around for a few years more than some of the younger people, gotta let them know that this will not last. Don't lose courage. Act.
This is regarding Ann Gauthier, the ACT person who just spoke about acting. Well, Charles and I were in Trader Joe's, and I had never seen Annie there. I said, hey, I've never seen you here. Well, she was grocery shopping for 3 people, and I call that acting. That was a wonder. It was just admirable. But of course, that's the business you're in, helping others. And I want to also say, if you look at me, you'll know that this will not be my first rodeo as far as people being mean or mistreating because of our color. I've been through a lot, 78 years next week. And it seems that you have to bolster yourself up because these hard times come and go. And I remember being called names often, and I thought at one point, I don't know who the president was at the time, but I think I had quit teaching high school and I was teaching at Marion College. But in the interim, I was amazed that nobody called me a name. I said, this is good, things are getting better. And when you live with that, you get a strength that other people who haven't been through that don't understand. We have the regular things that happen to everyone else, illness, death, disasters, but with it, we also bring the recognition that we are different because of our color. But I have found that if you stick around long enough and you give a person an opportunity, we're all the same color. We're all the same color because we're all one. And if you want to think everybody's against you and everybody hates you, you're wrong. Because there are people who, of course, have been intimidated with fear. Don't help her because she's black, or you're this because you help black people, or you like black people. But don't listen to that. But those are the people who were intimidated into also turning their back when something awful was happening to you. But if you talk to them quietly, they may say to you, they feel helpless. What can they do in private to help you? do you need a helping hand, or what can I do? But don't tell anybody I helped you. And it's that fear, but you have to let that go, because those people are out there. And a person is willing to say hello to you, like I've said before, say hello to that person. And they'll tell you everything you need to know. They'll tell you about themselves, and they'll tell you how much they appreciate the fact that you said something to them. And so that's one little thing you can do to help another person, and also to look inside yourself and find out what about you could be improved upon, and do it. And that's all I have to say.
Friends, are there any more messages in the room or on Zoom? As a means of closing out the open worship, I'd like to let you know that Noah is applying for membership here at Fairfield. And if you can't, if you can't stick around for meeting for business, you can direct your comments to the clerk before you take off.
Speaking of the clerks, I'd like to say something to the community. Because I should have done this announcements. This is about the composting project. We've already mentioned that Anita's not here, and she's kind of the head person, but I'm her substitute. I haven't even looked to see how many green buckets are out there, but because of monthly meeting, I'm not going to be able to do anything about those until after monthly meeting. So if you need your bucket for the coming week, I suggest you hold on to it. The alternative would be to take it out there. You know, if you have to leave, you're not staying for monthly meeting, you can take it out there and dump it yourself, but I'm not going to be able to do anything about any of them until after monthly meeting.
I told them I'll be emptying the buckets.
Oh.
So just give me a few minutes after meeting, and I'll put them back by the back door. So.
Well, okay.
There's about 9 or 10 out there, so.
Silly me.
Yeah. No, it's okay.
I'm Randy Horton. I'm your clerk.
There are extra buckets underneath the coffee maker, right? And that I found. So if you'd like a second bucket, you can grab it.
If you want to become a composter. Write your name on the lid, so no yours.
Early Quaker meetings did not have a set time for meeting. The meeting went, and I feel like we could sit here and share and share and share. There's so much spirit is moving in the room. In the interest of time, now is when we have our community giving, the gathering of the baskets, and we're trying out having the second song while we have that. So if we could have some volunteers for collecting the food while we sing worship and song 137, Teach Me to Stop and Listen.
As we leave this sacred space, may the call to seek justice burn brightly in our hearts. Let us remember that true worship extends beyond these walls, into the ways we live, love, and advocate for one another. May we walk humbly with God, stand firmly for what is right, and act boldly in love for those who are marginalized and oppressed. Go now, empowered by the Spirit, to do justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with God. Amen.